Welcome, folks, to Entity Florida. We're here today with a good dear friend here that we just met recently, but I know he's a good dear friend because I'm sure we've met in many lifetimes of the past. We're here today just to discuss some of the areas here dealing with state national, how to overcome some of the obstacles that we're doing within the paperwork, within the ability to communicate with the law enforcers of the policy. And so before we get going and stuff like that, I'm going to go ahead and just read this letter real quick. And this is a letter from the Arizona State Senate. And again, if you like a copy of this, feel free to email us at entityfl.com, and we'll be more than happy to share this with you. And this was sent to the Director of Public Safety to the state of Arizona. It was done in the early days of December 10th, 1985. And so I'm just going to go ahead and read this real quick. Dear Director Milstead, it has come to my attention that numerous individuals in our state have rescinded all their contracts with the United States federal government. The state of Arizona and each of its political subdivisions established themselves as freemen under the original organic constitution of the Republic of the United States of America. Consequently, they may be driving without auto registration, driver's license, or any other evidence of a contract. Because many law enforcement personnel may be unaware of the contractual nature of auto registration and driver's license, it is conceivable that this situation may lead to confrontation between these individuals and law enforcement personnel. I urge you to inform yourself and your personnel about this matter as soon as possible. If you would like to be briefed by someone knowledgeable on this subject, please contact me. In the meantime, in as much as this procedure is entirely appropriate when properly carried out, I would like to personally notify every such instance of confrontation in order that this persons involved and the public officials involved may be apprised of the correct procedure and the appropriations of their actions on the part of each concerned. My office phone is 255-5261. I am requesting to be notified of the names and incidents along with the addresses and phone numbers of participants of any such confrontations arising from the exercise of a person's free status in order to evaluate the outcome properly. Rescinded contracts. And again, this was done by Wayne Stump. He was a state senator. The paperwork has been notarized as well and gives all the information as far as the dates and things like that for verification. And so we happen to have a real opportunity here to educate these individuals in law enforcement. And again, this is a paperwork that I think that everybody should carry within their own car, their automobile, their truck, things of this nature. And so we're going to go ahead and talk to Kenny here today a little bit about what he went through and how he dealt with his first court case, dealing without driving a little over the speed limit. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Kenny, and feel free to go ahead and just kind of tell me what took place and the outcome and what you had to say within the court system, and just kind of share your story.
So for what I did first, I was still new. I didn't know a lot. I'm still very new to everything. And so I can understand the fear that comes across. You get pulled over, you're like, what do? I was speeding. Definitely, I was speeding. So this particular time, I didn't actually even try to educate the cop because I wasn't as aware as since then I have. If it happens again, I educate them. But this particular time, I signed with reservation of rights, the UCC 1-308, and the under duress part. So I signed it that way. So that way I knew that even though I'm fully not ready yet, I knew by the time I get to court, I was going to be ready. And so I reserved my rights there so I could tell them in court. I was like, that was the one thing I did right. I was like, I know if I get there, I'm going to have my reservation of rights and I'm going to call upon that. So as soon as I got home, I thought, well, I knew that I could rescission the contract because I knew under commerce law, which is what tickets fall under. Speeding tickets all fall under admiralty and commerce. So I knew in commerce, I could rescission any contract. So I rescissioned it and I took it in there. And I handed it to him, and that was a mistake. That was the first mistake I made. I should have mailed it with proof. And that would have been a better way of documenting the process, because walking in, what do I have proof of, Luckily, I went and punched in a thing and got a printed out thing showing the time and the date. And then I had the time and the date on the ticket. So that proved that I rescissioned it. And she took a copy and I gave her an affidavit to travel. So that was like how I tried to address it with knowing not that much information. Like I really didn't know, I'm still new, you know? So after that, what I did was I sent him in a letter and told him I needed due process. So my due process was, hey, answer these questions for me. You know, I'll accept the fine, I'll accept the fee. All I want you to do is answer these questions so I can have proper time for discovery. So when I go to court, I can answer all these questions and be prepared for court. And if you don't respond with X amount of days, you know, my unrebutted affidavit becomes truth in fact, and you've accepted my contract and I don't owe you nothing. That's what I did to him. That's literally how I beat it. He didn't respond. I sent him a follow-up letter letting him know he's in default, and they still wanted me to show up. So once they forced me to show up, I just brought a camera, and I have a fee schedule that I sent him, and it's right here. So this fee schedule, the courthouse got this exact fee schedule, and it says it's $1,000 a minute to attend meetings under duress. So I wrote him an invoice and sent it straight to the judge. 100 minutes, $100,000. And that's what I did. But when I got there, I just stayed in honor, was calm, told the judge what happened. I admitted to speeding on the record and everything. The district attorney ignored my documents, still said, hey, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and find you not guilty. So I told him that he acted outside his judicial capacity, because I realized by him ignoring my documents, that's him ignoring his job. And when he acts outside of his job, that's when he loses his immunity. Everything within his scope of his work is fine if he's doing his work. But once he falls outside of that, that's where he's in trouble. So he got caught ignoring documents because it says it on the cover sheet. Let me see if I get it on there. It's a felony, right? Let me see, right. Where does it say it at? Oh, right there. It's a felony to alter, ignore, or dispose is a felony. So for him being a public servant to alter, ignore, or dispose of this document while it's placed upon the record, it's a felony for him. So I recorded him with the pin camera. I actually went in his office and gave him this document, and he's like, oh, you know, that doesn't apply to me. I have no idea. But then when I went to court, it was him who was against me. So it did apply to him. And all this was placed in my court case. And I just brought duplicates with me to show him, hey, I've already filed all this on the record of this ticket. And so the judge recused himself, the original judge. And that kind of, you know, that made me think, wow, it must have really had an effect on him, because he was found in dishonor by not responding to my conditional acceptance for offer. And so the conditional acceptance was, hey, answer these questions so I can have due process, and I'll pay the fine. And when he didn't answer him, he fell in default. And that default judgment is literally how I beat my case. Is all paperwork. So I walked in winning and a little bit of knowledge, not a whole lot. Like I wasn't like super advanced, but I walked in knowing enough that, hey, you fell in default. You didn't respond to me. And I just called him and said, hey, Your Honor, you know, make a judgment based on the documents I placed upon the record, and uphold my rights. That's all I asked him for. And he said, actually, because I heard they'll never admit it. And that's what I've read. All the books I've ever read, they'll never admit it, because it's like admitting the fraud system, and they don't want to admit that. So that's exactly what the judge did. He came back, he's like, I'm gonna give a 5-minute break. So I thought I was gonna have to start over, you know, because they say when they go back, they're like starting over. So I was like getting ready, and he goes, this is what I'm gonna do for you. I'm gonna find you not guilty. And I know that's a commercial term, but I was like, I didn't know exactly how to defend against that yet, because I'm still new, you know, like I'm saying. And what happened was he found me not guilty, and that was pretty much it. He's like, I'm going to find you not guilty. And he said, it's not because of your paperwork though. But I also watched him, 3 people before me, he railroaded all 3. And one of them was losing his house and his car. And he begged the judge, like, please just cut me a chance. And the judge had no mercy, none at all. No mercy. Said pretty much what's going to happen is, if you don't pay this within 60 days, we're going to issue another like warrant for you to come in and talk to us again, and then we're going to have more fines, and it's going to lead to more money and more. So you pretty much have to pay it. There's no way out of this, and I'm not going to help you. That's what the judge was saying. So it wasn't that the judge let my ticket go because he couldn't figure out. He said he couldn't figure out which jurisdiction. I was like, okay. But yeah, he totally knew which jurisdiction because they said it. I mean, and I admitted it on camera, and he says it. The prosecutor says, Your Honor, you should find this dude guilty because he admitted that he was speeding, and I proved all the elements of the case. And that's when I called out the DA. Hey, you fell outside your scope of authority, and now you're liable, and your bonds are up for grab. because when you fall outside of that scope of authority, that bond that protects you from violating me, now I'm going to go get it. So I'm going to write him an invoice too, because I got him on camera. And if I don't hold him accountable, he's just going to violate my fellow man. So I'm getting him. I'm going to get him too. My wife, the ticket that I showed you, the 6-second one, she's sending that cop an invoice because he has to know where he messed up. And that's the only way to really stop these guys. It's not about the money, but that seems to be what it's about for them. Once they get hit in the pockets, they're like, oh, all of a sudden I know how to act right under constitutional law, not violate the oath that I'm supposed to be upholding. And then they get their job right, which is awesome, thank God. But money's what seems to do it for them. So let's see how all that part goes.
Yeah,
But that's what happened with me.
I think that's a great example of how to go ahead and address things prior to the court. That's one of the main things that I think a lot of people tend to forget. They just think they can walk into a court situation and then bring in your evidence.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
Yeah, that doesn't work. Very few instances that I've seen over the years that a judge will allow them to reestablish another date for the court hearing because they didn't put their paperwork in prior to. Some, for the most part, will say no for the most part. Every now and then you might have somebody who'll say yes, but in my opinion and my experience, as well as what you've said here recently, it's important to put the paperwork in prior to.
Yeah.
Allow yourself to establish you over them versus them over you.
Yes.
That's the important aspect. Another area that we're looking at too here to go into is policies, ordinances, things of this nature, because they all follow under the commercial contract and under the compacts. And so we have to take into consideration, what you've done with your speeding ticket is no different than being fined through an ordinance or through any type of commercial entity that is trying to regulate. Because again, rules and regulations are of the federal citizen, not of the state national. And so those are the things that we have to be able to address as well. And so again, when we look at what's transpiring across the nation, many individuals are waking up to this actual movement of being a state national, stepping outside the federal citizen aspect. One of the things that's very important for people to recognize is that we're not sovereign citizens. Okay.
Nope.
I take offense to that. Okay. Because again, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. In the wordage, it's like, no, that's like opposites.
Yeah. And most police officers and most enforcers of rules and regulations, they have been utilizing that term because, again, the FBI has utilized it as a derogatory statement towards anybody who wants to remain free on the land versus a sheeple on the water. And again, it's just one of those things that we have to be able to understand and correct them. Anytime we're addressed in that manner, we have to show that we are, we take offense to that. And I've said that to officers in the past, I take offense for you even to consider that, because again, they're two opposites in words when they're defined. And so either you're not educated or you've been told a lie. And, that's kind of how they look at it. So if you can give any advice, Kenny, to anybody who's coming into this new area of knowledge, okay, the spiritual knowing that they're becoming free once again as we are meant to be, what would you say to somebody who is new, who's looking at the research but is still not believing? What would you say to them?
Well, for the not believing part, the good thing is a lot of this is written in history. So it's not like, other things that have been coming up over the last couple of years that has a lot of conspiracy back behind it. This is all factual, written in history. So you have a lot of standing when it comes to, can I trust this? Yeah, you can, because it's written in history. They didn't appear to hide this at all. Government and the people that have perpetrated this against us, they didn't hide it. It's almost like a universal law they have to tell us, and then they play on us being too ignorant or being too sophisticated of a crime for us to figure it out. So the good part is, if you're new to this and you're wondering if this is something you should do, you don't have to worry about it being conspiracy because it's written in history. So that's a really amazing fact that you can rest assured it's a historical fact written. Congress did it. Like even when they changed the definition of person, everything's here for us to see. So if that's the problem, you can address that. The other thing is like, who do you want to be? Like, do you really want to stand up for what's the truth? Do you really want to stand up against all this, all the wrong you see, or your silence is in agreement? And that's what you have to understand. By you remaining silent in the way the law works, you are actually agreeing with all the things that you dislike. Anything that you see violating people, you're in agreement by your silence. And your silence is also, once you come to the point where you understand that there is a way to be free and you decide not to do anything because you're living out of fear, you have to understand who controls fear, and fear is a frequency. And that comes from the dark side. And literally, if you're in fear, living in fear, maybe you need to get into that and check that so that you can start wanting to raise above these frequencies of fear and start to operate in truth and in power, which is what God granted you and who you're supposed to be walking upon this earth. You're supposed to be a light, you're supposed to be the salt of the earth, and you need to shine like that. And fear doesn't give you any shining ability. You're just a low vibrator, and that's literally like a tool of the dark side. So you just have to really see who you want to be. I think most people really want to be free. Most people really want to stand up for the truth. And the hardest part, I think, with this movement is they feel overwhelmed. You hit the information and you're just like, oh my gosh. And so you have to also know that you don't have to know everything to stand up. Just like me, I only knew a portion, and I was able to find the meats of the situation and select all the big important things and try and do my best to maneuver. And it worked out. And that's really great. So you have to know it's step by step. There's people like BT that's been doing this for 30 years plus, and we're here to help. Well, I mean, he's here to help, and I'm here just a fresh mind that's learning it all. But everybody in this movement really, you could see they really want to help others, like no matter what. So you don't have to be overwhelmed. Just take it step by step and know that you can learn a little bit at a time and go a long, long way. And before you know it, you've acquired so much knowledge that they can't even give you a speeding ticket anymore. Like, the dude can't even give me a speeding ticket. The last time the cop pulled over my wife in that little funny video where he said, "You're going to charge me $1,000." I told him, I said, "Hey, I beat the ticket because I wrote on my documents the court's Dun and Bradstreet number on my documents." I called him out, de facto for-profit foreign corporation, on my actual things addressing the court. So I wasn't like acting off afraid. I told him, "I know who you are. That way, you know that I know that." And so that really worked out, letting them know that they're a foreign for-profit corporation operating here, trying to address me, the living man. So when I did that, I also told that cop that pulled over my wife, "Hey, just so you know, the courthouse is a foreign for-profit corporation." And he said, "Really?" So that seed was planted in that state trooper's mind. So now it's turned into a way where if I can communicate in a proper way and not piss off the cop, I can maybe plant a seed, just plant one, and someone's going to come along and water that, and before you know it, maybe that cop's a state national standing up against other cops that maybe are following corporate laws. Like we see all these instances across the state where cops do things that don't make sense, like the Uvalde thing, and they stand down against what they should be doing, their morale and the constitutional right and what the constitutional oath to protect. And that's wrong. So maybe that cop that would have stood down, if he would have known this stuff or become a state national, maybe he'd have had the will to do what was right against what the corporate, his boss is telling him, hey, don't go in there.
Right.
Things like that. So I think it's important for us to, more than important. And if you really want to help change the world, you literally have to be the change you want to see. And if you're not willing to be the change you want to see, nothing's going to ever change. That's literally the truth. And I know it's scary, but it's just, you have to know that you're protected, and you have to know that you walk in truth, and you just have to take it one step at a time. And before you know it, you've gone really far. And that's literally, that's what it was for me. And I know it seems scary, but everybody can do it. That's what you're here to do, everybody. Everybody, you're here for this right now. You were brought here right now to do this moment all together and to change the way we see everything going. That's what it's all about. That's my perspective.
That's beautiful. Well said. I mean, that's an empowerment of spiritual energy as well as within the physical plane. And so what you're doing is you're creating a synergy that's not just necessarily just in your surrounding, but you're sharing that with everybody else. And so I really take my hat off to you, give you the
Thank you.
kudos. and
things.
the continuation of learning. Again,
Yeah,
it's not easy, people. I mean,
yeah.
I still get confused after 40 years, just so you know. I mean, I probably forgot most of than what some people have learned. Okay. But again, it's just one of those things. There's so many obstacles within the education process. And again, if you can simplify it, okay,
Yes,
just make it so simple. That's the
I
important
like that.
because again, it is difficult. Law is difficult. That's why we are confused when we are in those situations, because it's meant to be difficult.
Yes,
And
sir.
and the words that are utilized are changing rapidly. I mean, behind me, I have all these different areas of law books and definitions. You would think that we would only have to have one, but if you look at, there's multiple, because again, that's where words change to fit their criteria versus the true meaning of each word. And that's what we have to be able to disclose to the general population, the truth. The United States, for most people, look at it as a constitutional republic. Okay. It's not. Okay. The United States is a federal corporation. The United States of America is what some people refer to incorporated. Okay. And it is incorporated to the point of incorporation becomes full corporate status as the United States, just so we all understand. The United States of America, or for America, however you want to address it, is in two jurisdictions. When it switched into the commercial structure, that's when the United States term became full incorporated. Okay. Up until that point, the United States of America was still constitutional, but also would provide services that did not compete with the general population mom and pop businesses. Those are things that we have to understand. There's multiple jurisdictions. Okay. So we have constitutional jurisdiction, we have municipal jurisdiction, and then at the same time, we have quasi jurisdiction. And that's where we're at today around the world and around our states and around every city and county, is in the quasi. Quasi is commercial, it's outside of government. Those people who have difficulty understanding the simplicity of what we're talking about, look up the Clearfield Doctrine. The Clearfield Doctrine simply states when government usurps its power as a corporation, it ceases to exist as government. Okay. So it's no government anymore. It's strictly
Yep.
a corporation.
Yep.
So again, what you did was great. You addressed the corporation, you showed them where your standing was.
Mm-hmm.
Standing is very important to recognize, because that's your status. And your
Yeah.
status is claimed through that area of not just rescinding the contracts, but also claiming your domicile on the land.
Yep.
So all you people understand that. It's simple, but yet again, it's difficult. Okay. Would you like anything else to say before we call this a good close here, Kenny?
No, I think it's everything's pretty good. I just really want to see everybody stand up together and know, hey, all of us, we're all in this together, and I'm for everybody being free, and I'll do everything I can to put as much information out as I can do, because I know the stuff that I know is a little bit newer, so my ideas are different. But people like you that are vetted, in this industry, I'm gonna always look to y'all and see what y'all got going on, because I know that y'all really know a lot of stuff. So I really appreciate everything you do. I really appreciate your help, and I appreciate what you're sharing with the collective. And I mean, I'll leave it at that.
All right. Well, do me one more favor, though, if you don't mind. Give us your social media names and where they're located at. So that way people can go on and check you out and subscribe, and also follow you
Sure.
as far as what you're doing.
So on TikTok, my original account is State Nationals Rock. They're about to delete that one, I guess. It's been sitting there. And I have a second one that they banned yesterday, but then I put in my fee schedule and let them know I was about to hit them for 2 million. And they magically gave it back to me. But that one's State Nationals Rock, and then it has a number 2. So they're both State Nationals Rock, and then State Nationals Rock number 2. And it's because of their last name, State Nationals Rock.
All right. Well, I like that. I do definitely like that.
Awesome.
Again, understand that we're here to help. Understand that no matter where you're at, new or even, been doing it for many years, we're
Yeah.
all learning every day. Because again, we have different examples every day that we're going to be going through.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to remain the same. Just know that. Again, we appreciate it. Check out entityfl.com. If you have any questions, feel free to drop us a line there, fill out our comment forms and send us your questionnaires. If you have any issues dealing with court cases, things like that, drop us a line. You know, we're not going to be able to answer everybody's questions because we're, you know, pretty much filled with crazy amount of emails already, but we'll do our best to get to everybody. Again, you know, most of us are doing it in a one-on-one basis, and you know, we might have our partner that's helping us, but again, we're doing our best. So don't get upset and don't think we're just, you know, blowing you guys off. You know, there's a lot of questions out there, so we try to answer them either on our TikTok platforms or Telegram or whatever platform that we're utilizing. Okay, so again, we appreciate the opportunity to visit with you, and we look forward to reconnecting real soon. Thanks again. Okay, we'll go ahead and